Are we hyping up Mikel Brown Jr. too much?
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering UofL, third year hosting this show. And I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making this your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville, free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day. We are conducting an 8-question weekly mailbag today. 3 men's basketball questions, 5 football questions. We'll have 3 questions in the first segment, 2 in the second, and 3 in the final segment of the show surrounding Mikel Brown Jr. Is he being hyped up too much? What about Kasem Prior's injury rehab? Fall camp preview, position battles, main storyline, players to watch for, and more. 8 really good questions that I appreciate you all asking, and I'm going to do my best to answer. But first, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. All you have to do, visit FanDuel.com to get started today. We start with 3 men's basketball questions on this Wednesday mailbag. First one, pretty blunt, pretty to the point. Even though he has been playing really well over the past couple of months, do you feel as if Louisville fans are hyping up Mikel Brown Jr. too much? I understand the intention and the merit behind this question. Like, expectations continue to rise for MBJ. The Cardinal fan base has just been hyping him up more and more. And I think that part of the reason is because of how good he's playing, but the other part is because the Cardinal fan base isn't used to having this caliber of a prospect. Like, Mikel is the 5-star talent that Cardinal fans have been, desperately asking for the past couple of decades. It has been that long. But my overall answer to this question is no, I don't think that we're hyping him up too much. I think that honestly the hype is justified. And of course, you don't want to be too fair with expectations, and you don't want to be too unfair with how high hype can get. But I mean, look at what he has done. Since 2025 started, there has not been a player in the country that has played better than Mikel. There's not been one single recruit. AJ DeBanza hasn't played better. Darren Peterson hasn't played better. The Boozer twins haven't played better. Like, Mikel Brown Jr. has been the best incoming freshman since 2025 started. You go back to the McDonald's All-American camp and that game and how he showed out, what he did at the Nike Hoop Summit. Should have won the most valuable player at the USA U19 World Cup, but that was given to AJ DeBanza. Oh, well, we watched what happened to Mikel was the best player on that team in that tournament. And not to mention the various camps. He just won a 1v1 championship at the Donovan Mitchell Spida camp, which showed that, like, hey, look, yeah, I'm really good when it comes to facilitating the basketball, playing really good team ball, but don't get it twisted. There's not a player in this country that can check me 1v1. That's what he's saying. And he's putting, he's putting the proof out there. It's like, look, yeah, I can flourish in 5v5 settings, but hold on. Don't get it mistaken. Like, you aren't going to check me 1v1. I mean, I think that the hype is justified for how good he is playing. I think that with the veteran group around Mikel, it's going to be able to keep him grounded even when he goes through some of those growing pains this season, to the point to where I don't think we're hyping him up too much at all. I think the hype is justified. I've gone on record saying that I think he's a top 5 pick in the 2026 NBA draft, and I am going to double down on that. Like, I truly do believe that is going to be the case. So, no, I don't think that Mikel Brown Jr. is receiving too much hype at the moment. I know it seems kind of foreign and odd to Louisville fans, and I think that's mainly because, well, we haven't had this caliber of a freshman come to Louisville since, I mean, it's been a very long time. So, will Kasem Prior's injury rehabilitation affect him starting this season? like in the starting five? I think it's a really good question because it's one that I've been pondering over the past couple of weeks, and I've been pretty clear that my starting five prediction is Mikel, Conwell, McNeely, Kasem Prior, and Sanaa DeFru. If you were to throw Woolley into that starting five in place of McNeely, I would not be surprised. Just like the same thing if you would throw Javon Hadley into the starting five for Kasem Pryor. Again, I would not be surprised. He hasn't played basketball since late November, since he torn his ACL and got surgery on it. Now, Pat Kelsey did mention in that recent press conference that he is on schedule, even ahead of schedule in his rehab. So what does that equate to from a timeline perspective? I don't know, but I would imagine that he's going to be ready for the start of the year. But is it going to be a situation where Kelsey eases Pryor back into competition? Like, is it going to be something where, hey, look, boom, we're going to throw you right back into the starting lineup, and, hey, you're going to be expected to perform a ton? I think he's going to be expected to perform substantially regardless, but could it be something where it's like, okay, first couple of games, we're going to bring you off the bench, allow you to, get back in rhythm because you haven't played in almost a year. Javon Hadley's a guy that was a key piece for this team last year. He's back, and he has proven more than enough that he is a capable and able starter. And I think that it wouldn't surprise me if he starts at the beginning of the year. But I think by ACC play, by the end of the season, Kasean Pryor is going to be starting regardless if it's, Hadley and Pryor together, whether it's Pryor or Fru, or Pryor or Khalifa. I just think that one way or another, once he gets back into rhythm, once he, gets comfortable on the court again, assuming that it's going to take some time because we don't know, he could be ready to go right away. I think that Pryor is going to be in the starting lineup for the majority of games this season, but potentially not at the beginning. That's a very good question. Final one is one of those, unique opinion questions. Would you rather have this season a Final Four appearance in men's basketball or a college football playoff appearance in football? Now, I am operating under the assumption that, this question means that you're at least getting to the Final Four in basketball and you're at least getting to the college football playoff in football. And I really would like to go with football because we've never been to the playoff, and I think it would take this program to new heights. But if Louisville basketball gets to the Final Four, that means they are 2 wins away from a national championship, and I think that the basketball team is going to be better respectively in their own sport than the football team will be. So even if Louisville football makes it to the playoff, I think the chances of hoisting that trophy at the very end are less likely than cutting down the nets on the basketball side. So I think that for starters, if the baseline is you arrive in the Final Four or you arrive in the college football playoff, you have a better chance of winning 2 games than versus, what would that be? 4, maybe 3, depending if you get a bye, and I really doubt you do. So you would be going probably on the road somewhere to try to knock off a solid team. Could be an SEC team. Then you'll play a top team at a neutral site. You win that, you're going to play another top team. And if you win that, you're going to have to play another top team. But in the Final Four, it's just 2 wins. So from a probability standpoint, then I would take the basketball side. And also, I just think that, this basketball program just desperately needs to get back to, that national level of relevance at the top. And I just think that it would benefit basketball more than it would football, because I think that it would be more likely that basketball would cut down the nets than football would win the national championship. Now, I would love both. It would be awesome to have another year of the Cardinal. It would be even better to not have a decade full of pain, misery, and suffering right after the year of the Cardinal. Yeah, you could say either one, and I wouldn't hate it. But for me personally, I would go with the Final Four because it'd probably be a better chance to cut down the nets, and that would be huge for Pat Kelsey. So when we come back, we have 2 football questions, both centered around fall camp. Fall camp started today on Wednesday. We're going to answer those questions when we come back on this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, today's episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, whether you're into the baseball games under the lights or golf on the green. FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. Look, you're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? Because with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are too busy getting sunburnt on the beach. I think one of the reasons why I love using FanDuel the most are the new daily promotions, like the profit boosts with same game baseball parlays, or to hit a home run parlays. And then you have, of course, when soccer ramps back up here soon, you will have those parlays pop up. So I mean, you just get the best of both worlds. You have great odds already, but now you combine that with even more boosted odds, and it just makes too much sense. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. All you have to do, open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Card Nation, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Throughout the month of July, we are getting closer and closer to August. Saturday is the 4-year anniversary of the launch of the Locked On Louisville podcast, which is awesome to kind of think about. Super, super excited and grateful, and just excited to get back into the full swing of the football season. Fall camp started today on Wednesday, and we have some questions in the mailbag regarding some fall camp topics. And the first one is, which position battle are you mostly interested in fall camp? And I think that I kind of went back and forth on this one. I personally, had tight end in mind. I had edge rusher. I had secondary, but truthfully, I am really interested to see what happens at wide receiver 3. Like, that is one that I am intrigued by. I know Trayshawn Hurry had a pretty interesting, almost acrobatic catch on the first day of fall camp. He is one that is in a really good spot to get that wide receiver 3 nod. Transfer from San Jose State. Outside of Chris Bell, one of your only deep threats that you have on the team. He had a breakout season last year for the Spartans, and I think that Trayshawn Hurry is putting himself in a great position to be able to compete for those wide receiver 3 snaps. You also have another incoming transfer, Dakari Collins. He's spent 2 seasons at Clemson, 2 seasons at NC State. He already knows what is required to play in the ACC. Didn't have 2 good years at NC State, but how much of that was because of bad quarterback play? 6'4" receivers that high point the football that well, they don't grow on trees. So, I mean, to be able to have someone with his physicality and his skill set, he is also going to factor into wide receiver 3. Don't forget, Antonio Meeks, really good Sun Bowl game, really good spring practices. The returning player could be in line to see more snaps at wide receiver 3. But not only that, there's 2 other players that I'm focusing on. Bobby Golden, possession receiver, transferring in from Akron, could be sort of that backup slot behind Colin Lacey, and a player that Miller Moss and Chris Bell have talked about as improving a ton. That is Minnesota transfer TJ McWilliams. So there are a surplus of guys competing for, it's probably going to be a by committee approach at wide receiver 3, but even then, it's a competition that I'm intrigued by. And then I will say tight end as well. I mean, I think Nate Koriski is your go-to starter, but what about Jaleel Skinner? What about Jacob Stewart? Devon Mitchell? Like, there are so many players in this room that I feel like could rise up. I mean, Dylan Mesman, you never know. So I think wide receiver 3 is the position battle that I'm watching closely. I want to see who makes the most plays in fall camp. Now, granted, understand this, and this will be something that we continue to repeat because it's the truth. The position battles won't end on August 30th. In fact, that's probably when they're going to heat up, because you have 3 games to start the year. The year going to be expected to win, and win pretty decently, or win pretty handedly, so by a decent margin. So these guys are going to get opportunities. If Louisville ends up blowing teams out and heading into the second half, you're like, okay, let's give some run to other players and see who makes some plays so we can see what we have before that late September game to kick off ACC play against Pittsburgh, then you're like, okay, yeah, these guys are making plays in the fall, but what are they going to do with live in-game reps? So that's where I'm at. I think wide receiver 3 is the spot that I'm looking at the most. Which under-the-radar players are you predicting will have the best camp? This is a very, very good question. Under the radar, when I think of under the radar, I'm looking beyond the service level. Like, I wanted to go Trayshawn Hurry here, but I think people are starting to understand what Louisville has with him. I wanted to go Adonijah Green on defense, but a lot of people are understanding that he's going to play a key role for this team. But I'm going to pick one on both sides of the football. The first one is going to be Jaleel Skinner, and he's a player that I really do believe is going to carve out a significant role. Now, he has to prove that he can block really well, but with as good as Nate Kariski has been as a blocker, if Jaleel Skinner can even be serviceable as an inline blocker, at 6'5", 225 pounds, he brings an aspect to this team that you don't really have elsewhere in the tight end room, and that is that extreme verticality, that wide receiver-like receiving ability. He only had a catch for 4 yards last year, opted to go to the portal, rescinded his name, and had a pretty good spring. Had I think a touchdown in spring ball, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2, I forget. But no, I think that he is going to be a guy that's going to make some plays in the fall. He's going to turn some heads, and you're going to be like, uh-oh, is this finally the season where Jaleel Skinner is able to put it together? High 4-star guy that has all the potential and the talent in the world. It's just a matter of being consistent, showing that he can be a serviceable inline blocker, and being able to make those plays. So is this, the season where everything comes together and you have a breakout year for Jaleel Skinner? So it's like a 1A, 1B, two-headed monster at tight end with Nate Kariski and Jaleel Skinner. I think it's a position that, for a couple different reasons the past 2 years, it hasn't really been a huge focal point. I felt like they tried to do that with Jamari Johnson before he got hurt, but, couldn't. He went down halfway through the season. So I'm going to go Jaleel Skinner on offense. On defense, I'm going to go with the transfer here. And I think that, on the surface, you may think that, hey, look, of course, I think he's going to have a good season, but I don't think he's getting talked about enough, and that is linebacker. You can't really discount SEC experience. I mean, he was a regular contributor for 3 seasons at Tennessee. A guy that was involved in the rotation. He wasn't like a standout starter, but he played, and he played in significant games. So, I mean, you have a player that's not going to be rattled when you go play on the road, which you don't have many road games, but still, point made. You have a guy that has played a ton of high-level college football, so the floor is going to be higher. And then a player that has the versatility of Kalib Perry. I think he's going to be able to not only be able to stop the run, but could he slide out and play that star position? That outside linebacker in coverage. Could he back up Antonio Watts? I think he's going to be a really serviceable backup. But it wouldn't surprise me if we had a conversation here in late August where you're like, how do you keep Kalib Perry off the field because of how good he's playing? The Great Crossings product, 6'3", 245 pounds, I think he is. But I think that Kalib Perry is the guy on defense where, the diehards are talking about him a ton. But I feel like the normal fan, those that casually follow football, but they don't until, August, Kalib Perry is going to be a name that you're going to hear a ton. And it's going to be something where all fall camp, that linebacking core is really iron sharpens iron, because there is a ton of talent with TJ Quinn, TJ Capers, Stanquan Clark, Jackson Carter, Trent Carter, not Jackson Carter. Trent Carter, Kalib Perry, Antonio Watts, Cam White, list goes on. Caleb Matalow. So for me, I'm going to go offensively, Jaleel Skinner, and defensively with Kalib Perry. So Don't go anywhere. We have 3 more football questions to answer on this final segment of this Wednesday edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Card Nation, I haven't decided just yet if there's going to be a Thursday episode or not. There will be a Friday one, of course, on August 1st, and that's going to be one that we talk about potential relocation to the Big 12. What sense does that make for the Cardinals? Is that the right move? Should the Cardinals be proactive? And all the logistical stuff that goes along with that. We will have Locked On Big 12 host Drake Toll on the show with us for that. Tomorrow, if there is an episode, we're going to talk about the recently released ACC media preseason order of finish in the conference. Louisville was 5th, and I was like, man, I don't like that at all. We'll discuss potentially. If not, we'll have some discussion on Monday about that. But 3 questions left in this mailbag. The first one is, with the level of competition seemingly not all that great to start the season out, do you think there's a reality where Jeff Brom and company make it a point of emphasis and an effort to not play Isaac Brown and Duke Watson that much? I think you're onto something here. Don't get me wrong. Isaac Brown and Duke Watson are going to get touches in every game that they're healthy this season. But it would not surprise me if they get less than 10 carries each in the first couple of weeks, especially that first game. Now, James Madison's going to be the best of the 3 non-conference teams you play early on, so you might have to use them more. But if these games turn into blowouts, which they should, I think that you're going to rely upon Kewan Brown, John Maurice Wilder, and even another player that we're going to talk about here shortly to sort of shoulder that workload to keep your running backs fresh and, don't put a lot of tread on those tires before you get to ACC play. And I think that that is a huge benefit to where, some teams have some tough games early on, and Louisville's able to, in theory, keep their guys healthy and say, hey, look, you're ready to go. You're fresh. You've had an early bye week. You're going to hit the ground running when you play Pittsburgh in late September. So, I think that Louisville's going to do everything they can to keep Isaac and Duke not unlike a snap count, but if this is a blowout, I don't think that they're going to play into second half so much early on. And who knows? 10 touches each, and with the way that these guys can churn out yards after contact, get through that hole and not get touched, they can get 100 yards on 10 carries. All that is a breakout run here and there. So those guys are especially good at that. So, and then there's another player, and it's something that we learned early on in camp. What are your thoughts on Shawn Boykins getting reps at running back? This was the first thing that kind of caught me off guard, and the first thing you're like, that's pretty interesting. Shawn Boykins was a recruit in the 2024 class, just inside of the top 1,000. 3-star wide receiver from North Hardin High School, 6'1", 190 pounds, quick, fast receiver, but of course didn't play really last season because of, the players that were ahead of him didn't record a single statistic. And this season, with the guys that you have at receiver, Lacey, Bell, the surplus of wide receiver 3 options, it would kind of makes sense that with the lack of depth at the moment at running back, you have 4 scholarship running backs. 2 of those are Brown and Watson. The other one is Kewan Brown. And then you have true freshman John Maurice Wilder. So, unfortunately, knock on wood, injuries at that position happen. It feels like more frequently than other positions because of the physical toll that it takes on your body. You're getting hit more often than not. So, maybe early on with Shawn Boykins, this makes sense that you have another body in that room, getting some snaps and working out at running back. But also it kind of fits that mold of, Colin Lacey, Rondale Moore, and even a player that Louisville had recruited, Jalen Lucas, who Lucas probably fits the description more because Jalen Lucas shouldn't have been a true running back. He's more of that hybrid that can create big time plays. He's one of those, Swiss Army knife type, producers that can get the ball on end arounds in the backfield. Think of like Cordero Patterson, for example. Even like maybe not this extreme, but think like Deebo Samuel. Like, I don't think that Shawn Boykins is going to be lining up as much as a receiver, but when he's deployed, kind of like the early Tutu Atwell days of, you're just trying to get him the ball in space and letting him operate. Like, there's going to be set design packages for him on the field, assuming that Braum likes what he sees with Boykins getting running back reps. So who knows? Maybe he just switches to a traditional running back in this fall camp. But I think that this is one of those like Jalen Lucas type moves to where, you're using him as an all-purpose back. He's getting the ball in the backfield. He's getting the ball on screens, slants, out in the flat, you name it, and just trying to make stuff happen in space. Final question, which true freshman will see the most playing time? This is a tough one because I don't think that there is a legitimate, like, clear-cut answer. Like, for me, last year it was Isaac Brown. Now you're like, I'm not really sure. I think that there's two that come to mind, really potentially three. But with Tayon Holloway back on the team, I think that Antonio Harris's snaps might get limited a little bit more. I'm going to go with the first one being CJ May, the highest recruit in the class, 4-star level prospect at the edge rusher spot. I think that there is a ton of opportunities at the defensive end spot right now with Wesley Bailey, Micah Carter, you have Justin Beatles as well, and then at that Leo spot, Clev Lubin, Adonijah Green, CJ May. I think that, early on, maybe CJ May is able to potentially crack into the 2 deep. I'm not necessarily so sure. But I think of the true freshman, he is one of the ones that has the most likely path towards early playing time. Another one, I think, is because of the kind of issues with depth, and there's questions whether or not Joseph Jefferson is going to be, making it to the Cardinals team. But the safety spot with Micah Rice, true freshman from Cincinnati, ended up transferring to North Oldham for his senior season. I like what he brings to the table. 6 foot to 185 pounds. Like, yes, you have your normal guys, D'Angelo Hutchinson, JoJo Evans, Corey Gordon Jr. There's Dave McCullough. Blake Ruffin has battled injury. So with Ruffin's availability in question, same thing with Joseph Jefferson, I think that, hey, Micah Rice could be in line to play more because he has to be. So something to look forward to. I think that the true freshman that I believe will play or potentially see the most playing time would be CJ May and Micah Rice on the defensive side. That is going to wrap up this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you right back here very soon. Go Cards.